Hello and welcome to the Futro Hidden Movie Gems podcast. I'm your host, Ty Spiker Christensen. You're saying there's a chance that when we push that button, that the world will end. I'd say it's near zero. Near zero. What do you want with the theory of low? Zero would be nice. All right, guys, we've got Jordan Christensen on the podcast.
Dude, Matt Damon stole the show. I'm not gonna lie, he did great. Yeah, I mean, everybody gave amazing performances. I was just like really enjoyed his character.
Leslie Groves. I don't know. I think Lou Strauss did really good. Robert Downey Jr. He was.
Oh no, I was just
sorry.
okay.
There's so many other performances that other than Matt Damon's.
There was. I was so glad to see Ben Safdie after because I just I got so
he was in this. Yeah,
he was amazing. His Russian accent.
Bomb.
His Russian accent was beautiful. Mwah. He's a great actor. Holy cow! Because I love his movies and he's an amazing director. But gosh dang,
yeah, it's fun to see when an actor is like, dude, I would just be a part of this. Like, I would love to be a part of.
Oh, I know. Christopher Nolan reaches out and you're like, yes,
yeah. Like, I would love to know his circle of influence, or where you land all these actors and still keep your budget what it was.
Like, and the guy from Blue Ruin was in it too, and I was like, yes, I'm so glad he brought him on. He is so good.
Yeah.
All right.
Green Room and Blue Ruin and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we forgot to mention Cameron Mickles on the podcast.
I don't know if we can be trusted with such a weapon, but I know the Nazis can't.
I know what it means if the Germans have a bomb, or the Nazi. I can remember it says
Dude,
Nazis.
I love Cillian Murphy so much.
Cillian Murphy, man. I've seen all these memes lately where he's like, in all of his interviews, he looks like he's disappointed and looking far off in the distance. Have you guys seen that?
No.
I love it. He's just a thoughtful guy, right? Like, a lot of people probably don't realize how much of a complex an actor like Cillian Murphy is, and then he plays Oppenheimer on top of it, where it's like this man of intrigue. And I feel like I know so little about Oppenheimer. Even after watching this, I'm still like, there's so much I want to learn about this guy. I want to listen to his book now, and curious to know more about the man behind the
mask.
Just hopefully not follow.
He's Batman.
Nice Scarecrow, but hopefully not follow in the footsteps, Ty, of his marriage skills.
Yeah,
that's right.
Marriage skills, not top notch there. On the record, I just wanted to know he was definitely unfaithful. Guys, let's get into this movie, Oppenheimer. It's out in theaters. Go see it, folks. And then don't go see Barbie movie afterwards. The Barbieheimer thing is dumb.
Yeah, that's such a dumb double feature.
I know, it's funny. I actually thought I would do that because I went and saw Oppenheimer. But then after Oppenheimer, I'm like, I'm not gonna go see Barbie. Maybe I think if you are gonna do that, please watch Barbie first and then Oppenheimer. I just can't imagine going to see Ryan Gosling as Ken like immediately after watching this 3-hour. I call it a masterpiece. I think this is a great film, but I'm wondering if it's recency bias because I was thinking about it more. We're finally reviewing it, but we both saw this like, I don't know,
right when it came out
3 weeks ago. Yeah, it's been a while. So
did you get to see it in the IMAX time?
You
done messed up.
Well, see, that's the funny thing. My theater says, but I'm like, I don't know if it's technically a theater. It's an AMC, which I think it would. I don't think it was IMAX though.
Cameron and I definitely saw an IMAX. It was amazing.
Because there's only like, what is it, 30 or 40 theaters across the US that actually has IMAX?
No, 70 millimeter, I think, or whatever.
Yeah. So that's like the pure form of actual IMAX.
Okay, so you can watch it like IMAX, but not.
Yeah, I don't even understand really the difference. I think it's just the quality of the film.
Part of me thinks it's like a gimmick. It's like, but no, then you watch it like, oh, there's definitely a difference. But I watched it at the biggest theater at Point Cinema in Madison, Wisconsin. So you tell me if that theater, it's an AMC theater, if it has an IMAX. I don't know. It was the biggest screening they had, the biggest theater. Loudest sound, which was helpful because I couldn't hear the bomb going off, I think Christopher Nolan went silent or something like that. And I was like, did I miss it? Like, oh, he's doing that quiet thing. And then the bomb goes off like a few minutes later because you see it, but then the sound comes like a few, delayed moments afterwards. So I thought that was sick. So
yeah, that's cool.
Which that kind of reminded me of Chernobyl.
Oh yeah.
The people would see the sparks and then you would hear like the
when it first goes off, right?
Yeah.
You don't.
Oh yeah.
First
You
explodes.
see light travels faster than sound and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I like that. So guys, today we're discussing this movie. It was directed by Christopher Nolan. Its writers were Christopher Nolan, Kai Bird, and Martin Sherwin. And it stars. Get ready for this.
Everybody.
Cast. Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr. You got Safdie, bro. You've got my
bro.
computer's loading.
You got
now, so I
Josh from
lost-
Drake and
yeah.
Josh Peck.
Yeah, Josh Peck, dude. It's gonna take some time to realize. Sorry, I still have that song stuck in my head. Scott Grimes, Jason Clarke is in this. Kurt Kohler, Tony Goldwyn, John Goins, Macon Blair, who's the Green Room and everything. James Darcy, Kenneth Branagh's in this.
Don't forget about
forgot
Rami
he's
Malek.
in it. Harry Groener,
Rami
Gregory,
Malek killed it.
Ted King. It just keeps going. It just keeps going. And then you say some of these names, you're like, I don't remember. And then you see him, and you're like, holy crap, it's that guy. Like everyone that played a part in this is like a famous actor from something else that you'll recognize. It's like, it's a That Guy movie because you're like, oh, I've seen her.
I've
Florence
seen him.
Pugh. Florence Pugh is in this. I forgot that. Yeah, she was the other love interest.
The two people also that had like one scene but were so good was Rami Malek and
Rami Malek. Yes, thank you.
And oh my gosh, Commissioner Gordon.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Gary Oldman's in this, dude. He's the president.
Yeah, president. I was like, what?
It just keeps going, dude. This whole list, like I'm looking at this, I'm like, every actor that's anyone and that's ever been anyone is in here. It's crazy.
The Midsummer Girl. You probably said her name
Florence
already.
Pugh, yeah.
Florence Pugh.
You got to know her name by now, dude. Jordan, your boyfriend Jack Quaid is in this,
Jack Quaid. Oh, Huey.
From
Somebody
The
at work
Boys,
keeps calling me Huey.
Yeah, I know, right?
No way, that's so funny.
But yeah, everyone who's something. I also liked, who was it? Was it Jack? It's not Matthew Modine, is it? He's the white-haired dude. He plays like the villain in Stranger Things. That's what I know him from.
Oh
yeah, Papa. You are
Papa. Yeah, Matthew Modine. Yeah. He was in it, and I was like, it's weird to see him playing like such a hopeful scientist. I thought he was going to be like, like drowning some special child or something.
Let's test these nukes out on children.
Yeah, he's like, now if we could get a bunch of telepathic kids together, hear me out. We don't need to build a bomb. We have something more powerful, telekinesis. I love it. Anyway, so yeah, it's a who's who. And like I said, when you're Nolan, I guess you can call in favors because who wouldn't want to be part of a movie that's going to go down, like, I mean, regardless of whether Nolan gets recognized while he's alive, like years from now, people are going to be able to look back on his films and be like, yeah, why didn't we have this guy direct all of history? Because he's like way more exciting than all your history books and stupid documentaries combined. But as far as truthful adaptations, I thought it was cool. I've heard some different things. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but like all the black and white was objective. So it was like what was happening and around him. And a lot of it involved the Strauss character, Robert Downey Jr.'s character. And then like the color, when it was filmed not in black and white, and the color, it was like more subjective. It was like
from
Oppenheimer's perspective.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. So other than like, I noticed it as almost a time jump, but no, there were times where even though it was black and white, it was objectively what happened, right?
Well, it's kind of like the Memento thing where it was black and white and it was the center of the film, right?
Yeah.
Or was it the end? No, it was.
Oh, yeah.
It was the center spliced throughout.
It was literally the middle point. Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan, didn't you watch the YouTube video? It was so clear.
Because that's kind of.
Have you seen? Yeah, the video of Nolan describing. He's like, and then there's like we cut here
more
and here, and you're like,
and then he
stop.
But this one kind of this one kind of plays like that. Like it has the
very similar.
The interview throughout the movie, and then it starts from the end.
Interview, more like an interrogation, dude. A freaking
holy cow!
Freaking shred his. Yeah, it was raking him through the coals, man.
We just want to find the truth. I'm like,
we just want to know the truth. Really good.
I think you guys have already found your truth, though.
Yeah, dude, and freaking Albert Einstein. I don't know who was that actor that played him. He was great too. Yeah, man, Albert Einstein's in this movie. Who doesn't want to watch this movie, dude? Okay, so folks, what was it like watching this movie for the first time, and watching it again for the podcast if you've seen it again. I went and saw this in theater at the biggest screen they had, and I was blown away. Pardon the pun. This movie was really good. I found myself completely engaged. I only had to go out to pee once. It's 3 hours long, folks. Can you blame me? I didn't drink anything that day, but it still wasn't enough. Yeah, I was in the movie theater, and the only thing I said to the guy next to me, because I went and saw it alone, but the theater was packed, which surprised me because I was seeing it like it was almost at the end of the weekend that after it had already come out, I think. But anyway, Meg 2 was a trailer that came on. It's like Jason Statham riding a jet ski, punching sharks at like a giant shark. And I was just like, what's the overlap for people that want to go see like a Christopher Nolan film and go see like Meg 2? I don't know. It just made me laugh. And then the guy next to me got a chuckle out of that. So that made me happy. I made him laugh. So, but yeah, going into it, I was a little tepid just because I knew that he was taking on such a big project. I was like, oh no, like, well, one, I found out it was going to be rated R, and I was kind of bummed just because I was like, well, what's it rated R for? I was like, maybe the bomb is so violent. It's like, it's just going off and shreds people.
Which is
maybe
crazy because
language.
that, I mean, you almost see none of it.
Yeah, the bomb is it's
Side
more
plot.
about the story around it, which again, that's another reason why I love this movie. It's not even necessarily about the bomb, but it is all about the people that made it work and the politics and the history around it. The people around it are so interesting, and I like that. So
it's like the decision in Dunkirk where you never get to see the villains. I was like, oh, interesting choice.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, exactly. And this one again, they don't show any like villainous or whatever. There's like a very interesting scene though where the guy's dealing with his demons, and we'll get into that. But anyway, I found myself really enjoying it. I was just like there for the ride. I was intrigued, and I felt just like Oppenheimer at the beginning. He has such wonder, and his mind keeps like cutting to like this moment where you see like what I assume are like electrons and protons like accelerating and like jittery and everything. It was just weird because it would like you'd be watching him, and then it would like flash to this like moment, like it looks like I don't know, it's desktop screensaver. It just like cuts to this technology, and it's just like or this image of, like I said, I don't know what's going on, but I assume it's like chemical reactions. And it's very bombastic, so I just thought that was really interesting. So I felt very energized throughout a 3-hour runtime. So nice work. The movie was very entertaining throughout. How about you, Cameron? What was it like watching it for the first time?
Yeah, I went and saw it with Jordan, Grant,
So jealous of that viewing.
Yeah, we got a lot of people.
Strider and Drew. So it was really fun. We had a good group to go see it.
Well, we bought tickets for mom and dad too, but then we realized
we found out that there was multiple scenes, and I said, you can watch on your own.
Yeah, I don't want to be anywhere near mom and dad watching this. No.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was going into it expecting it to be one of my least favorite Nolan films.
Interesting.
I mean, keep in mind my least favorite Nolan film is Following, and that's 8 out of 10 for me. So I was expecting it to be on the lower spectrum of just Nolan. So I was expecting it to be like good but not fantastic. And I was pretty happy.
Were you at least interested in Oppenheimer and that whole thing, or not? Did that?
Yeah, I did think it was interesting. I definitely thought it was like, for me, it just sounded like way too much to try to juggle, and that's why I was like, I don't know how you're gonna juggle like all of the politics and like a nuclear bomb in a movie.
And Cameron didn't know at the time the runtime, and he's like, "Oh, okay, he can very much do that."
See, but even then, that's why there's so much talking. It's like so quick that I'm like, whoa.
Oh, I know. You get no time to like process anything.
Yeah, and so so I kind of went in with what I was glad I went in with those expectations, because it made me like love it, and I was really impressed with it. And like watching it in the theaters was also so fun, because majority of Nolan's films, like I was too young and didn't really care about movies when most of them came out, and so it's really fun to like be older and be able to go see these in movie theaters. But yeah, I was super impressed. Obviously, a couple interesting scenes that me and Drew were making eye contact a couple of times during the movie. But which I'll get into a little bit with nitpicks. But yeah, overall, just like really impressed. It's a movie. It's kind of like The Shining, where at first I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna rewatch this, but then I'm like, after like a little bit of time sits, I'm like, I'd be down to rewatch it, just like appreciate more detail.
100%. How about you, Jordan?
Yeah, I also have a hard time figuring out like where I stand. I obviously I loved it, and I like my favorite review ever was the one that said 5 stars. I'll never see it again. Like, and that's how I felt after, just like right after I'd watched it. But like the more I talked with people about it, like the more I loved it, and I was like,
we
oh
talked
yeah,
we talked for an hour and a half outside the theater about it as well.
yeah. So basically the time we would have wasted on Barbie, but instead we just talked. It was a really fun discussion movie, and this was a really fun one to like sit on and stew and just think about like everything you had just witnessed, because there's a lot and there's a lot going on, and there's so many sections where like I'm like, oh, that part of it, like if that was the whole movie I would have absolutely loved it, because there's like that Shutter Island part where he's like, the effects of the bomb is like totally tormenting him, just like the killing
He's innocent.
world
Crazy.
and Shutter Island, the killing of the World War II, all those people, like seeing those innocent bodies. Anyways, it's just I love that, like that feeling that weight. You feel it too. You're like, this is portrayed so well. Not to say I didn't enjoy the politics. I just was not prepared for that, because I had no idea it was going to be a 3-hour political movie. So I just kind of wish I had embraced for that. Still enjoyed it. It was really well done. It was just a lot of people talking in rooms, which he did it in the best way possible with Hans Zimmer's music blasting.
Yeah, and it had the solo guy. Sorry, I just thought when you I don't know why you mentioned Hans Zimmer, made me think of the Star Wars guy.
Like,
He's the guy that played Harrison
more
Ford's
person.
younger, Solo.
Anyways, I love this movie. So I like Cameron. I also think the more I think about it, I'm like, I think I'd be willing to rewatch it. Maybe, hopefully, if my kids are ever into movies one day, and we've gone through all of other Nolan's movies, this will be at the bottom of the list, but it'll still be on the list.
You guys are insane. Oh, I mean, well,
Mine's a little different. I'm down to watch it in like a year or like
Oh,
within the
really?
next year. Yeah.
I'd probably
Maybe.
watch this before I watched Following, but then again, I'm also like, I wonder,
Oh,
like, if my kids are old.
100%. I don't know if I'll
like
ever rewatch Following.
So, and then like movies like, well, it's funny that you say that, because now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I guess it would depend on, like, would I want my kids to watch the Nolan films as they came out, or I'm like, probably just maturity, because I was like, I can get them to watch, the Batman movies probably before I could get them to watch like Oppenheimer and like Memento. And even Following, they're just like darker premises. Like,
That was a crime that
Insomnia
you're.
also is also kind of on the more adult.
what
Which
was
one?
that?
Insomnia.
Yeah, and
Oh,
even Insomnia. Yeah,
Kind of a
again,
little
well,
heavy.
it's just, it's definitely heavier than like Batman. Now, the Batmans are very dark, but
it's
even then,
criminal
I
though
think
that Drew hasn't seen Memento. I'm like, are you
Yeah, I
kidding
know.
me?
It's so funny the amount of times where he's like, yeah, I'm not. But it is one of those movies I also think, because like I tried to watch it forever with Jordan, and Jordan was always like, I'm just not in the mood for it. Because it's
I've
just
seen it
so
so
much,
many times and
and it's
shown
so
so
much
many
to
people.
process too. You're just like, even after seeing it multiple times, you're like trying to understand it. You're like, why do I understand it less now?
yeah,
But
like the
yeah,
least
seeing it.
dark film, probably Tenet, right? I mean, it's the least dark.
Oh yeah, it's because it's
Kenneth Branagh gets a
honestly,
little
honestly, it's
heavy.
just like it's a confusing Mission Impossible.
Couldn't resist. Love
I
it. Kenneth Branagh's in this movie.
I just want to say I'm so glad I saw it in the theater, because
Yeah.
all of Nolan's movies need to be seen in the theater, and I'm so glad I've seen almost every one of his movies except Insomnia, Memento, and Following. Oh, and then I was on my mission in Argentina for Inception. I wish I saw it, but
I did see Inception. That was good in the theater. So yeah, I think when I think back to it, I'm like, Mom didn't let us go see the first Batman in theater, but you saw it with Mom in the
yeah, I
theater. And
did.
then you came home and Mom was like, it's too dark. And I was like, no, I want to go see Batman. So this is the pain that I went through. So we didn't know Nolan before that, but then I think Prestige either came out before or after that, and we went and saw that movie. And that
I
movie
saw that
was
twice in the
in the
theater. That's
theater
such a good one.
twice in the theater. Yep. And
Yeah,
I
I first
remember,
watched
I don't
that
remember, I think Mom watched it after I'd already seen it, because then she was like, I would have said yes, this movie's dark. And I was like, it's so good. She would rather have me like go watch The Illusionist. And I'm like, screw Illusionist. No one likes freaking Illusionist. And I like Paul Giamatti, but screw Illusionist, man. I want freaking Prestige, man. Anyway, and then yeah, I saw Dark Knight in theaters, and that movie blew me away. And then I wasn't able to see. I was on my mission when The Dark Knight Rises came out, so I missed that. And I was like, yeah. So like, as far as I know, I'm like Nolan probably topped Dark Knight. And I'm not gonna be able to see it. And then I had the correct expectations going into it, so I still enjoyed the heck out of it.
Hater.
I saw Interstellar, and then I saw in theaters, and then I saw Tenet in theaters, and now I've seen Oppenheimer. So yeah, I've pretty much seen like more than half his films in the theater. I'm pretty happy about that. So
Can I get into my first my two favorite things?
yeah, let's hear it. What are your two favorite things about Oppenheimer?
I think something that kind of surprised me. I mean, I just think the way in which the movie handled the atomic bomb, I also thought was super interesting. I think
With care.
The fact
Sorry,
that
that's a super
I think
stupid joke.
I think that the fact that the movie was almost not about the bomb also kind of even shows, I think, the whole entire situation really well, because I think it depicts it, because it's essentially like this bomb, because even it being dropped, I love how it was just kind of like, it was like a split second thing where it's like 5 minutes earlier in the movie, like the bomb dropped, and then it's just like, it just dropped. Like, it's one of those things, and I think it was similar in history where it's just like, oh, we've created this, and then it's dropped, and then it's like, holy cow, like in a split second, like we've altered kind of the history of the world. And so I think just kind of the pacing of it, surprisingly, I really enjoyed. I did think it was so cool how, because Grant was like, well, I thought the movie was going to finish with the bomb. And he's like, and then the bomb happened and there was an hour left. And I was like, and I love, like, this is very reminiscent of kind of a lot of the politics in Game of Thrones. And so this just reminded me a lot of that, with just kind of like who does what with something, and you're just like, oh man, and kind of people being manipulative and getting like butthurt, and they're like, he made fun of me in public, so I'm gonna make it my life's goal to ruin this person. And you're like,
Right.
oh my gosh. It just reminds me of the Jim Carrey quote, obsess much. And so I was really impressed just overall, because that was the thing too. There was only like probably 20 minutes of the movie where I felt like it lulled a little. But then the rest of it, I'm like, for the entire 3 hours, I was engaged, and really impressed. And then my second favorite thing is, I just think the scene where the crowd is cheering, and then you just hear like the screech, like the, and then it's silent, and you just see everyone clapping. I just like, that's the same reason I love serial killer movies. I just think the psychology and kind of like the way people's brains interpret, like especially trauma and things like that, is so interesting. And so to see kind of how he was handling with like, I just became like partially responsible for the like death and destruction of so many people, and then here's this crowd that's like, yeah, go. And it kind of also reminds me of like the same question that Inglourious kind of poses, where it's like humanity or like morality is very like subjective to where you're from, because it's like all those Americans were like, protect our troops so we don't have to send more over, kill them. But it's like from another perspective, you could be like, oh my gosh, like, and from Oppenheimer, where he's like, I'm responsible for the death of thousands and thousands of people. And you just see kind of like the effects of it, how it's like haunting him, and just like stepping over like the body. I just thought it was such a cool like manifestation, because similar to what Jordan mentioned, I think like in Shutter Island, there's very few movies that represent it well, of like kind of that feeling of like,
both of you are aware
gosh.
that that's Martin Scorsese, though, right? I don't know why I keep mentioning Shutter Island.
I am aware that.
Okay, just I don't know why I just keep mentioning Shutter Island.
Yes, we know you're a
Much
hater of Shutter
lesser
Island.
of Martin
Guy's the
Scorsese's
uncultured
films.
swine who doesn't like Shutter
I
Island.
just think there's probably many more movies we could think about and reference,
But they're not as good as Shutter Island. But yeah, so
I appreciate you sharing that, camera, because yeah, that definitely rings true to my favorite scene. That whole that the after the bombs dropped on Hiroshima, or is it Nagasaki? I can't ever remember.
well, both.
Right, yeah, they dropped
They
bombs,
dropped
right?
two on, yeah.
Anyway, Jordan, what are your two favorite things?
Anyang.
Anya.
Racist.
They about two bombs on you.
Anya. Anyang.
Anyang. Jordan, how about you? Two of your favorite things.
Dang it, Cameron kind of stole mine, because yeah, that whole scene where he's giving that speech, it was amazing. Like,
yeah,
I
the
mean,
fraying of
yes, just
like behind him, it looked like it was gonna go off. The bomb was gonna. And you're like, this guy's gonna unravel. He's gonna like
yeah.
melt down.
When he
It's
like
not-
steps in the body, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, just like, what have I done?
yeah,
But it's just that constant battle of like, because I mean, that's me too. This like moral scrupulosity with everything I create. I'm constantly like beating myself up, like, oh, is this gonna like influence people for bad? Especially because I love violence, and so like everything I create has a ton of violence. So just, it's like, is it called Death of the Author when it's like, should they be held responsible for the things they create? I'm
in a way, but also their interpretation, I think, is more of what it means, right? So it's like if Nolan's good at answering that, because like Inception, what if he was like, well, the answer is the top is spinning because, and it doesn't topple
Oh,
over because he's dreaming, and it's like
I guess
that doesn't matter because I interpret it meaning that it wobbles at the end. It means that he wasn't dreaming and it was real. But it's like just because the author says it, it doesn't mean that you can't interpret it as something else.
okay,
And
maybe
just like it's not crazy in Shutter Island.
yeah,
yeah, right, yeah. Well, and it's funny because when it's ambiguous, another great example of this would be Blade Runner. Jordan, both like Ridley Scott
Yeah.
and like one
oh
of the
yeah,
writers
Is he a
disagree, and
replicant?
then Harrison Ford. But it's like
Does it
even if the
matter?
director of the movie comes out and blatantly says it, it's like I still interpret it to mean something
yes.
else. So Death of the
Mhm.
Author, it's like screw you, man. Like I interpret your film. I know
Oh,
more about your film than you do.
well, I maybe I'm saying the wrong thing then, because I'm thinking
Yeah,
of like Taxi Driver, and that guy killed John Lennon and said I was inspired by Taxi Driver. It's like
yeah,
the artist who created it, Martin Scorsese, I don't think should be held accountable for his
for
work,
sure.
but I still like beat myself up
It
thinking
isn't
maybe you
interesting to
are.
watch, yeah, Oppenheimer grapple with like how culpable is he in the deaths of
Yeah,
thousands of people,
for
right?
creating that. But it's
Well,
like
see,
And
and
if
the world,
we
right?
would
Yeah,
be
there's
the country
implications
that,
in the future.
yeah,
Yeah,
we would have been the country that would have been bombed by,
yeah, well, and see, and that's what I think.
probably, I don't know.
My favorite
We'll never
explanation
know.
of it, because I also saw this thing where it was like the bomb was finished and it's making by the time that the war was essentially over, that there was no way we would
Hitler
lose.
had surrendered. Yeah,
And
Hitler
so
surrendered
it was
already.
interesting because
Oh, that's right.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, so we just like did it for no reason. But I loved how Cillian Murphy explained it. He says, like, he goes, we are theorists. He goes, theory like frightens us. He goes, people in the real world don't fear theory. He says they have to see it in order to fear it. And so he is essentially like, Japan's not going to surrender unless they can see the magnitude of this. Like they have to be able to, because otherwise it'd just be something where it's like, oh, I have a weapon. It's just like the same thing as like a parent threatening timeout. It's like you're never going to fear it unless you actually have to deal with the consequences of it. So it's like they had to show like this actually will like kill thousands. Like they obviously didn't know to what extent, but I thought that was so interesting, and that makes so much more sense. Because at first I was like, why did they just drop it? But it was like they had to let them know, like we're not messing around. We're like we will drop them.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think that's really cool. I like what you guys have said so far, and I'd say my two favorite things, Cameron,
Wait,
was that
has
whole
Jordan done it too?
I think so. Maybe
Well,
I
that
skipped.
scene, and then
You said you took.
I
you
just
took-
thought it was
yeah.
so fun to see all the cameos. Like every time somebody showed up, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I love him, I love him, I love him, and I was just like, so many
And
great
Jordan's
people.
like, and I don't love any of the women.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
Dude, I know. So I wanted to mention that, but we can get into that. It's not a nitpick, but I thought that was interesting about subjective versus subjective view, because he's like, are you going to take care of the baby? Like, what's wrong with you? And
Oh
you find out
yeah,
she's like an alcoholic, but then
that
you're
was
like,
great.
he was unfaithful, and like on the record, it's like under perjury, we know definitively that you were unfaithful to me as your wife. It's like, yeah, she was put through a lot.
But he was
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah,
And
but he's a tortured soul. It's all right because he's a creative mind.
I just wanted to mention
He's
too
under a lot
that,
of stress, folks.
like, I know Cameron's going to mention this as his nitpick. However, and I don't. I listen, Cameron.
Sicko.
The scene
Oh,
that
don't you dare!
I
Don't
know,
you
but
dare.
I did.
But
Visually, it was an
I'm not
interesting
agree.
way to show like his wife imagining, him
Oh
with another
no,
woman.
that's the only one I feel is justified.
Yeah, and I thought that was an interesting visual. I obviously you could have done
Disturbing.
it maybe less. Yeah.
Yeah.
George's just like, I just find it very interesting. Nothing else about it. It's just
For
very
research
interesting.
purposes.
It was really funny because Grant was like, getting super squeamish, and I'm just like, oh, I get this.
I put my arms around the people that were next to me in the theater, actually.
But it was the only part that I was like, oh, I can follow this story, the infidelity, because like I had a really hard time following the I couldn't understand any of the stuff they were
Jordan
talking
thought
about.
Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh were the same actress. I was like, I don't see what the problem is here.
No,
Wait,
I just
why is there two of them in one room? What's
I
going
could
on?
not I couldn't follow all the sciencey stuff. I was like, I know like this guy's
Wait,
good and this guy's bad, and
but you're like, I understand infidelity and I know what that looks like. Science stuff very hard. Hey,
well, I
Wait.
thought even when he was trying to explain it to her, and he was like, I can't go through your skin. As he was explaining it, I thought it was going to be a scene from Interstellar when he folds the paper and puts
he grabs a pencil and shoves it through her hand.
And it's like, this is the wormhole. And I was expecting him to like explain it so I would understand it. So dum-dums like me could get it. And I was like, I didn't understand anything he was saying.
Well, let me help you out. No, I'm kidding. It's really cool, like about that. Like, so two of my favorite things. So I mentioned the scene of him dealing with essentially like PTSD, like just shock after everyone's super like rah rah, we did it, we beat the baddies. And I just thought that was really cool that
Yeah.
it showed a different side of it, where immediately after, this should have been a great moment of release of all this pressure and suspense that was building. And then the movie, like you said, Grant was thinking, oh, it just keeps going. It's like dealing with the fallout again, pardon the pun or the wordplay, but it's like the fallout of his actions over the last, because like it's all building to this moment, and then like that's usually when movies end, right? Like it's like we did the impossible task, they're standing, the American flags furled behind them, like that's when you end your movie typically. And then a movie like this is like
Well,
unapologetic, like, so this is what we did with our American hero, we
oh, I know. It's
dragged him
so
through the mud.
sad.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like we
bye.
completely drag him through the mud.
Yeah.
We completely dishonor his name. We allow him to speak in public events like some lapdog, like some show pony.
Yeah.
It's just so,
I think it's
such a fall from grace, and but not it's not self-inflicted necessarily. It's like he's just like almost naive, where he's like completely honest and open with people, and he was constantly putting his foot in his mouth. He was like, thank you for your time. It's like, you thanked him. He just freaking like told them that he doesn't think you should have your security clearance. Like, what are you thanking him for? And he's like, he's a friend, and I value his opinion, and if he's being honest, like he answered truthfully. And you're just like, it's like painful to watch someone that's like almost a doormat.
I think it's super interesting that you were saying that, because it kind of reminds me, it's why I think Manchester by the Sea is one of the best representations of grief. It's because I think like a lot of movies try to like
sad.
because I think a lot of movies try to like glorify sometimes like overcoming sadness, and so
Yeah.
to give that triumphant moment, kind of like Pursuit of Happiness, where it's like you see him get the job and he's like happy and walking away, and it's like it ends on a hopeful note. But I love that Manchester by the Sea kind of dwells in that like mundanity of life, where it's just like, yeah, you'll have days where you feel like I'm getting over this, but it's like, but then the next day you wake up and it's still hard. And it's just like, and that is just a continuous thing where it's like every day you're going to have to still wake up with that hard thing of, oh, my father passed away, or my brother passed away, like, or my kids passed away. Like that's something that you have to wake up every single day to. And some days it'll be better than others. And so I just think similar to this, it's like, it does show like, oh yeah, it's awesome that we like triumphantly won war. Cause like Hacksaw Ridge makes you feel like, oh my gosh, like he conquered war. But you just think of it, you're like, the amount of friends that he lost and probably the PTSD and trauma that he had was like off the charts from what he saw, and like all of the things that had to deal with that. I just thought were insane. Also, I think it's one of the craziest references and name drops I've ever seen in a movie was when Nolan name dropped JFK. I was like, oh my implications, what? Goodness. I was very surprised by that.
Well, so I don't even understand any significance other than the fact that he's going to become a president someday, and that's how they viewed him at the time.
No,
but am I missing anything else?
Okay, so Robert Downey Jr., like a super vengeful guy who's very jealous. They said that the reason that like RDJ didn't get essentially like all the votes, to my understanding, it was like the reason he didn't get approved was because some senator was trying to make a name for himself who he should have been voting a certain way, but he was like, nah, I'm voting against it. Because essentially he was in a position where it's like, oh, this person always goes left. And then he went right to like make a name for himself. I'm like, I'm going to be different. And so that's why he's like, oh, who's like some senator like John Kennedy. And then just because I
Is the
think
implication that Strauss had something to do with JFK's assassination? Is that because now I'm like
maybe
interested?
see because that's I think
See,
because
I'm
you're
connecting the dots for the first time. I'm like, is that the
yeah,
whole
see, so that's
point?
what I think the implication is like, oh, he made like essentially ripples in the wrong pond, and like RDJ was not having it, and he was like,
That's
oh, you
really
want to do
funny.
that and screw me over? Like I spent my entire life trying to screw over Oppenheimer. Like,
He's like, just wait, I'll make some friends with the FBI and the CIA, and they will blow
Yeah.
your brains away.
Well, and
Brains
I forgot to
out.
mention, but when his love affair, when she died, I like loved that flash of like maybe she committed
hand.
suicide, or maybe she was like, yeah, you see a hand, a
Oh
flash of a
yeah, I thought
hand,
that was
or
interesting
was she
too.
murdered? And the best part is like he blames himself, and either way he leans, it's like he loses, because it's
Doesn't
like
matter.
either I got her killed by the government, or she committed suicide because I showed up and said I can't see you anymore. So it's like,
He's like he's psychologically responsible regardless in his mind. He's like,
yeah,
no matter what I
Yeah,
did,
it's a
either like
lose. Yeah.
yeah. That
either
I mean, that's
yeah.
another great, like Jordan just said, like representation of like what he's dealing with. It's just like, well, I either killed this girl because I led her on and was hooking up with her, and then told her I couldn't hook up with her anymore, or it's because I went and hooked up with her after like knowing that she's like a fascist or a
A
communist.
communist, yeah.
Yeah, and like
Ominous.
and after have gotten information that could not be leaked, that was getting leaked, and then you go see this girl. I'm like, you, for being a really smart guy, you make some dumb decisions, brother.
Again, I think the naive, I think, is probably best. But and it's almost sad because when it comes to the science and theory of the bomb, it's like he did seem to have it not just like an answer for everything, but also like he's a very thoughtful person. So it's interesting that, and I guess maybe he saw better intentions with everyone. Like a great example of this when he went and saw, was it Eisenhower, played by Gary Oldman, one of my favorite cameos, where he's like,
That's the
don't let
best.
that crybaby back in my office. I love
That
that.
was
Like
my
No, but
favorite
I
quote.
moments
also
like
love that. I
some
also
Sally
love that
sob story,
scene
and he's like, yeah.
when
Anyway,
he tells him about like feeling responsible for all the deaths, and then he hands him his handkerchief.
Yeah.
I think it's two representations. One, he's saying like, cry me a river. I do make these decisions every day. And
right.
then two, I also think he says like, go ahead, try to wipe the blood off of your hands. Like, and then he's like, oh, you can't. It's something that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Like essentially saying like, this is a
Interesting.
decision that you can never cleanse yourself from. Like
Right.
because of being in this position of power, it's impossible for you to have clean hands.
Well,
Which
with
I
him
think
calling him a
is
crybaby after he left, like, which I found out that's true. He actually did say that. That wasn't like interjecture or anything like that. That's literally what on the record the president said about Oppenheimer. He called him a crybaby. I'm like,
that
okay,
science is
like,
crime. Yeah, I don't know.
I know you're like, okay. I mean, like, keep in mind what I really loved about it too was sometimes like we might set out and venture to do something, but then an unintended consequence may result. So, like, one of my favorite things is the whole reason he gets recruited easily enough because he's very thoughtful person. Matt Damon comes to him and he's like, we need to assemble, like, you're the only person that we could talk to about this, but we need to assemble. And he goes, I know what it means if the Germans have a bomb. And he's talking about the Nazis at the time and Hitler and his rise to power, and Oppenheimer was a Jew. So like he's like, I of all people understand the significant implications. Like his purpose for building it is to destroy people like me. And so that's like a very powerful motive. And it's really interesting that it gets all the way to the end and like they're so close to their goal. And then it's like the war's over as far as Hitler's concerned. Hitler's surrendering, the Nazis are defeated. So it's like, oh, great. Like you're like threat over, done away with. And then they're like, no, finish up the bomb project and we're gonna drop it on the Japanese. You're just like, holy cow. And like again, they ask him about it and he's just like, like you must have known that this was gonna happen. He's like, he couldn't have known. And it's so
Well,
crazy because it's like you said, people don't fear the theory of it. It's like
well,
they want to see results. They have to see catastrophe in order to make anything in the world or make change, right?
yeah.
But it's so tragic because you're like, whether or not it's necessary, it's tragic. This is the world we live in where catastrophes like this happen and decisions are made and people bear the freight. I mean, there's so many injustices over the course of history that we could, too many to count. But it's just interesting, a thought experiment where at the very end of the movie is my second favorite part, because I mentioned a lot of this was when Oppenheimer's faced with Einstein's
But talking about
question.
something more important, Ty, than you.
Talking something more important than Strauss. Yeah, he couldn't bear the thought of it. He's like, "What did you say to upset him?" And he's just like, Einstein asked him, like, one day at the end when they bring you out as and make you make your speeches, but they've made you completely irrelevant, but you realize you gave them the power to destroy themselves and forever change the world for the worse. And he's like, did I? Because part of my favorite thing. So Matt, I quoted it earlier. Matt Damon. The whole theory was like there was one calculation that they did where if they ignited this bomb, it was a possible chance that the whole atmosphere would just ignite and it would end the world. So they thought like there's a possibility when we set this off, like it's going to just destroy the entire planet because it would create a chain reaction and just ignite the atmosphere on fire. So that was like actually a theory that they talked about, and they're like, it's possible. And through some mathematics, they're like, it is possible. So like, it's freaky to think about. But at the very end, he went to Einstein and asked him, he's like, do you think it's possible that we'll ignite and change the whole world? And Einstein, according to his math, he's like, you've already know the numbers and you already knew the answer. And he goes, like, I'm starting to think I did. Like, even though it didn't ignite the world in that moment, you see this crazy premonition where he is in the position of the B2, the bomber and the plane, and you see overhead. It gives me chills.
That's such a great shot. Yeah.
The bombs flying overhead, and because you hear from the perspective of the bomber, he tells his story about dropping the bomb, and then Cillian Murphy, Oppenheimer, he's sitting in the pilot seat and is watching these bombs overhead, and you just see these missiles launching out into the world, and you're just like, he may have caused a chain reaction that is going to result into the total annihilation of mankind. So, I mean, that's very heavy. And like, that's what I think a lot of people, I even enjoyed thinking about, because you're like, the threat of nuclear war, World War III, all that stuff. And again, a lot of that can get into nihilism and pessimism. And it's like, oh, it's too much to think about.
It's
because
amazing
we
too
live in a
that
time where more people are more concerned about the implications and the politics of Barbie movie than they are Oppenheimer. Like, what's going on? What's going on? What a misdirect. Guys, go see Oppenheimer. This is a much more important movie and much more interesting to talk about than Barbie movie. So anyway, Jordan, go ahead.
I don't remember, but
sorry, cut you off there.
Can I just get in just
Yeah.
thoughts and then what I've seen lately real quick?
Yeah. Okay, you're dipping early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Overall, I think kind of similar to what Jordan mentioned, going in with the right expectations with this movie, I think is super important. But yeah, just kind of,
what are the right expectations, Cameron?
Well, I just think understanding that there's like the bomb isn't the central focus. There's a lot of politics. It's a lot of talk. And then just kind of like maybe watch like a 10, 15 or like just a 5-minute video on YouTube of like just understanding the context of World War II. And just kind of, because I think that helped, because I watched a lot of videos, it was just essentially talking about kind of the before, after, and it kind of just made it easier to digest, because there is so much information and name drops. You're like, am I supposed to know these names? What's going on? I don't remember who's who. So I think if you just kind of have a general understanding of what's happening, like, and like the timeline when they start the what's it called, project, I think like that will help you kind of
the Manhattan
Project. Yeah. Just kind of if you have that kind of that foundation, that layer, I think it'll help you it'd be able to process the film a lot better. And then I mean, absolutely recommend only 2 nitpicks is just obvious. Like, my only nitpick is just, I felt like the scenes in this movie felt like Christopher Nolan was like, see, I can make an R-rated movie with, and I was just
well, maybe not even that, but like, okay, so he's been panned for, people think that he doesn't give enough character time or like character development. He's more interested in concepts and plot and story. So like, he's not as concerned about characters. Like a lot of people complain about Tenet, JD Washington's character wasn't fully fleshed out. No, he's a man of intrigue. I fell for it. I liked his character. I was very much invested in him and Kat and her son Neil, because it turns out to be Maximilian from the future. Anyway, whatever. So I almost feel like he was trying to overcompensate that. I agree with you. I think that I would just call it gratuitous scenes or whatever. It's just, and again, it's not even like, I know people that are like, it wasn't even that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, but I just didn't think Nolan needed to stoop to that level to do it, because I feel like it was cheap.
I hated the fact that like most of those scenes would
like, just have him in polka dotted. what they used to wear in the 40s
also, I
and
think
50s.
the lack of the thing that bothered me is most of those scenes would end up with a frame where there was no. So I'm like, okay, if we already arrived to this position, it wasn't super necessary for me to see half Cillian Murphy. I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to see
Give me
that.
the full. Oh, sorry. Wait, no. What were you gonna say, Cameron?
It was
Well,
also
go watch
just
127 hours, or no, not. Oh, I'm sorry. 28 days later, you can already get the full Cillian Murphy.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, but besides those, I mean, I think it's like besides those two scenes, I mean, very mild language and violence.
Yeah.
So like pretty easy watch.
Mild violence, yeah, and a movie about like the most destructive weapon on
Yeah,
Earth.
which is kind
I
of
found that
fun.
very interesting.
And then just what I've watched lately, been watching a ton of the Batman. Watched Air with Ty and Mom and Dad, which was really fun. I watched Amélie, or however you say it, the French film.
Oh yeah, what did you
Jordan.
think?
It was fun.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
There was a couple times where I'm like, what the fudge am I watching? But it finished really strong. I watched Batman Death, so I gave Amelia 8, and then Air was also 8 for me. And then I watched Batman Death in the Family, 7 out of 10. It's super good. And there's a bunch of like DC showcases on that. And then I went through a lot of the old Batmans, and I've never wanted to kill myself more. Batman
I watched
Forever.
half of that, the Riddler one with Jim
Does
Carrey with
not
Cameron.
age well.
It was so bad. Oh my gosh.
Batman Forever, I gave a 2. Batman and Robin, I gave a 1. Batman Returns, I gave a 1.
Allow me to break the ice.
And then I watched What Happened to Monday with Jordan. So fun.
Oh, really?
It's so good.
It's definitely top 200 for me. It's borderline top 100. I just thought it was such a clever idea and just like really well executed. And great performance by Numi Rapace, or however you say her name, as well as William Dafoe did a great job. And then I watched The Chaser with Jordan, which I really didn't want to be in my top 100, but it is.
So good.
It's insane. Give it an 9 out of 10. And then I watched Ace Ventura as my yearly watching with the cousins. Freaking movie's a masterpiece. 9 out of 10. It's so good. We were quoting it the entire time. And then I also watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse back to back to get a better judgment. One, my Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse jumped from like in my 40s in my top 100 to the 20s. Because I was just like, this is a perfect film. And then it barely actually beats out Across the Spider-Verse, because I initially had Across above, but after rewatching
Recency
it back
bias.
to back, I'm saying the first one beats the second.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. You had it above
preview.
it before.
I'm
Yeah.
Barely,
so glad that
though,
you've come
barely.
to see the light, because I was conflicted and I want to rewatch it for that reason.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear you say that, because yeah, the first one was
just
very
ever so slightly, because I
wonderful.
think the message is more succinct. I still think the story in the second one, I go into it thinking about its like I talked about in my Letterboxd review. I said that Gwen is a co-protagonist, and if you look at it from that lens, I think you'll enjoy it much more, because you feel like her arc is complete, and then
That is, I
Miles'
like that.
Miles' arc will finish in the third, which I think it's setting up perfectly for that. And so that's why going in for the third viewing, maybe it's also just
I agree that Gwen was the
overstimulation
emotional-
of watching it 3 times in a month since this came out. Maybe has also made me be like, because the Into the Spider-Verse, I forgot how much I didn't recognize how much I forgot from the film. I'm like, there's so much good things in here. Versus Across the Spider-Verse, I knew like every scene and what everyone was gonna say. So maybe I should let that one air out a little bit before I watch it for the 4th time. But so much detail in that movie. Holy cow. I was pausing it multiple times watching it with Mom, and there was like there's a ton of cool related parts. And there's like times where it's like, because information would flash on the screen so quick in the theater, I'm like, what the fudge was that?
Yeah.
So be able to pause and like look at all the notes, but
Easter
but
eggs.
yeah.
Look at all the
And
different
then
Spider-Man.
I'm looking forward to, I need to go see Barbie just because everyone is talking about it, and I need to know where I stand opinion wise. It's because people just keep like giving such, it's so
Like, I have
polarizing.
strong opinions, and everyone needs to know those opinions.
No, and then I'm also really looking forward to Blue Beetle, because I freaking love Blue Beetle, and he's like top 10 superhero for me. Some
Wait,
girl at
are
my
you
work was like,
serious?
she's like,
Do you read the comics or something, or is this like a show?
he's in one of my favorite TV shows called Young Justice, where it's like all the sidekicks too.
And he was your favorite.
His story is really cool. He's the entire protagonist essentially of the first season because
it's got the Cobra Kai kid. Cameron.
Yeah, because it's essentially
Yoto or Otlo.
It's a thing called the scarab, which it attaches to his body, and then
like the mummy.
In the TV series, they come to Earth to try to like remove it from him because it's that species like they conquer worlds.
They want their bug back.
But I'm really excited. It's probably going to be garbage because DC sucks at making movies. Except Christopher Nolan, he's the only one who can make a good DC movie.
What? Tim Burton.
Christopher Nolan's the only one.
Batman and Batman Returns.
Did you not watch
excellent movies? Yeah,
that's the last one. I'm saving it. I just need to give it some break, and I'm just like, okay, it.
You have to acknowledge that Michael Keaton was a great Batman, dude, and Tim Burton did great.
He's saving it.
That's fine.
But yeah,
I'm surprised.
I'm super stoked.
VHS, is that in reference to the VHS movie or just like?
Okay, no, not the. I do enjoy those movies actually quite a bit, but
I'm sure
it's just for like my VHS collection, which Quentin Tarantino backs me up. He says it's not the only way to watch movies.
VHS tapes.
Yeah, he still collects them. All right. And I just you said to keep hard copies of your favorite movies, so
I definitely agree. Like I'm
wish I do.
starting to think I'm gonna start a collection again because I've kept my DVDs all up until now, like my Blu-rays and DVDs, but I'm like, I really want to keep physical copies of the things that I really like, especially anything I think is borderline edgy, because all that stuff's going away. Which sounds weird because it's like, what do I like that's edgy? It's like I just mean like some comedy. Like, I mean, It's Always Sunny, they've already removed some of their episodes, and I'm like, why?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'm like, dude, I think it. Now, maybe even watching it would be a good indicator because you'd be like, oh, that doesn't hold up.
That's when you say that South Park removed one of their episodes as well. It was just like so offensive.
Yeah, and it's like, I think it's unfortunate that happens because I think there's a time and place for it. I don't think it's like for the sake of being, crass and crude and stuff is important, but like freedom of speech is an interesting place because you're like if you're a cartoon show with the intent of entertaining and making a comment on something, like I think that's important. Like Sunny tackles political issues, and lately I just feel like with them retroactively going back and being like, well, these episodes wouldn't hold up today, so therefore we're going to remove them. I'm like, I disagree with that, but anyway.
Yeah, I know. I listened to them talk and it's like, so what? It was a different time. Like, I don't know why you're being so like.
I know, because it's like, I feel like they're doing it out of fear, and again, if you've got a lot to lose, I understand that that's hard. It's just like, it's, to me, I just find that really interesting, but anyway, interesting topic of conversation. But yeah, you want to finish your thoughts on Oppenheimer?
Oppenheimer, yes. Recommend it.
You're about done. Yeah, I think we pretty much touched on everything. I just wanted to say, like, yeah, I think it's a really interesting film. The history around it, the characters involved, I thought was really, really cool. So don't have much more to say than that. And yeah, even the very discussion of it, I think is interesting, like, I guess the only question I would ask is like, if you could play part in it, how well could you sleep at night knowing that you contributed? And I'm like, I'm pretty unempathetic, so I'd be like, yeah, I was just doing my job.
Ty can make
it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, no, you could be the president and I could be the scientist because but it's so interesting though that like all these scientists are like very like passive people and like very and then kind, all these political leaders and they're the ones that have to make it. And it's like, but the people like the political leaders are just like the ones that drop it and push the button.
And yeah, they don't even care how like the bomb got to their front desk and they went and delivered it to someone. They don't even care about the time and effort that went into creating it. Like one last thing I was going to say is one of my favorite things about the whole building the bomb was the glass vase.
Yeah, putting marbles in. Yeah.
And they kept dropping kind of as a little motif to remind you of like the progression that the Germans were making, and then the contributions they were making and making the bomb bigger and the capacity and like,
well, I think it was they were waiting for that certain material because they were harvesting it and it takes a long time, like the whatever it's called. Yeah,
Yeah, was it radioactive?
Like I said, the sciencey stuff, I could understand the marbles. I'm like, oh, once it's full, they can build the bomb.
Once the marbles are at the top, the bomb go boom. No,
That's basically how I felt.
Yeah.
I felt like an idiot listening to the movie. I'm like, oh man, I can't follow anything. Though, Ty, I'm not even kidding, moments when I was like, the music was crescendoing. So I'm like, oh, so I'm supposed to feel like this is an intense moment.
Thank you, Nolan, for
like holding my hand and telling me what I'm supposed to feel, because
stop with it. Okay, again, I love it people say that. It's like most movies that have a score, there's emotional manipulation. Sometimes it's more annoying and egregious than others, but I don't know why like people are like, oh, it's just emotional manipulation. It's like, so is storytelling. Actors, when they start to cry, it's emotional manipulation. It's like, oh, they were just so caught up in it. It was so true. Like people get angry about the Joker, and yes, I agree that the cello, when it literally cuts in from that rock song to the cello, it was very distracting, and I agree where it seemed egregious.
Oh, I love that part.
And
I have no problem, and I know you're saying some people do. But like The Whale, for example, like Darren Aronofsky is like but he is the type of person that will always manipulate as hard as possible. Like he'll
for some reason, I was just thinking of an image of us dropping the atomic bomb on Virgin. I'm not sure it would be enough to wipe him out entirely.
Absorbs it. No, I just the
I can make that joke, folks, because I'm a plus size person myself.
And so I just love this idea that like he really hams up the music, and I'm totally fine with it. So it doesn't bother me. It is fun on both sides. Like I do love movies that don't manipulate you, but I also don't have a problem.
So did you see Red Letter Media talking about Oppenheimer?
Yes, and
they did this hilarious
12 Angry Men.
12 Angry Men, right? Okay,
I've watched that. I've watched that I've watched that clip so many times.
Yes. Okay, so they cut just the scene though of 12 Angry Men with the Nolan score.
You can't prove.
You can't prove, and it made me want to watch the movie. I'm like,
I know. I want to watch 12
Angry
Men.
But I would love it with the music or without it, because I'm like, honestly, to me, because I've seen 12 Angry Men, I understand what they're referencing, and it made me laugh because I'm like, it works with the music and
it does.
But again, everything is emotional manipulation, right? Like every interaction. I work in sales. Everything's an emotional manipulation. Purchasing insurance, that's an emotional purchase, right?
Ty's an insurance salesman. He's the devil.
I'm the devil.
Name that movie.
Is that Waterboy?
No,
wait, what is that?
It's John Cusack and that bald dude, and they go up and ski. I can't remember.
Wait, are you thinking of Better Off Dead? But that's not.
No, I mean they do quote the $2. We reviewed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah.
I forgot that line. He says he sells insurance. He's the devil.
Yeah. He's like you're practically the devil.
I love it. So that emotional manipulation, yeah. But anyway, the Red Letter Media. So I wanted to bring this up. So my wife for Father's Day got me this Red Letter Media T-shirt.
Yes, I didn't even realize that. RLM.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention it because a lot of people see it, and so I actually had one person mistake it for BLM, for Black Lives Matter, which I thought was funny. And they're like, I'm like, what? But I assumed he meant the podcast. But then I was working out in my gym, and then a guy.
Do you ever get people that do the? Isn't that what they do?
He put on the fist. He's just like, as I walk by, I was like, oh boy. So I was like, maybe I won't wear this into town anymore. But anyway.
You should just do the Hitler sign back to him. Sorry, very inappropriate.
Oh, I love it. Don't take that out. That is hilarious. Yeah, just do it back like, yes, mein Führer. It's like, what?
Mein Führer.
Yeah, like
we're joking.
No, so yeah, of course we're joking. Just have to say that. Yeah, if anyone's listening to this,
you have to clarify these days that when you're making a joke, because people don't know.
Yeah, and nothing makes comedy funnier than explaining the joke. So yeah, you guys can
it does for me sometimes though. I think it's like an extra layer, because
Jordan just needs like a cello and the music to come in to tell him
and tell me this is when you're supposed to laugh.
Jordan needs a laugh track, on this podcast, so you can
tell my gosh, laugh tracks.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Emotional manipulation. Sometimes it gets too far, and that's what laugh tracks are. It's like, laugh, it's funny, you idiot, and you're like, I guess so. It's funny because everyone else in the show is laughing.
They did an amazing episode
Max
of Always
said it perfectly.
Always like, Sunny.
They put it in the laugh, so I know when it's funny.
I know when to laugh. I know it's funny.
So I know it's funny. Yeah, it's like because you're not smart enough to figure it out on your own. That's because they think you're idiots, folks. Anyway, so I was recognized at my gym though. Someone recognized Red Letter Media because they saw the shirt, and he's like, because I was working out in this shirt. It's a good t-shirt, and I use it to work out sometimes. So thank you for
I'm
that.
bummed.
Red Letter
I wish
Media.
I still had my YMS t-shirt, and then we could be like,
yeah, dude.
wearing...
So some of our favorite channels, and I gotta
Yeah.
give it to you. Red Letter Media, you guys are a huge inspiration for me. Like the reason I wanted to review movies. I love your channel. And but anyway, I was recognized at the gym. A guy comes up to me, he's like, hey, like Red Letter Media, because he recognized, like,
Well, and they're out of Wisconsin
another
too,
BLM
which is
supporter. Yeah, but and they're from Wisconsin, obviously, from I think the Milwaukee area, but anyway, from Wisconsin no less. So I was like, yes, some representation, and
Yeah.
fellow movie lover. So anyway, it's just funny to be approached at the gym by this guy, and I was like, well, there you go. And he mentioned something about going to see one of their shows, and mentioned, he's been watching their show, and he said you guys are getting old. I disagree with him. I think you guys are just the perfect age. So don't be offended, Jay and Mike and
if they've made it this long on
Rich.
YouTube, I don't think they can get
you guys
offended.
aren't old. I think you're just the perfect age. But anyway, it made me laugh. He's like, yeah, those guys are getting old. So
well, that's why but
So
that
some of your
honestly
things,
adds to the humor, because they make like diaper jokes and like diarrhea jokes. I love it. It's so
they're still
good.
just as childish to this day. So
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to share that story about the shirt. But
It's
anyway.
the same. They talked about why Ghostbusters would be made if they made it with all the same actors before what's his name passed. It would have been perfect, because it's like there would be more jokes because they're old, and like anyways.
Yeah, very interesting. But Jordan, let's hear what you've been watching lately. What are you looking forward to?
Yes. So a week ago I said I watched Evil Dead 1, so I watched Evil Dead 2, and then I tried to watch The Evil Dead. No, is it just Evil Dead, the remake? Anyways,
the remake, yeah.
I'm just like, I'll skip it.
Did you like it more or less than the Evil Dead Rise? Did you like Evil Dead Rise more?
Oh, Evil Dead Rise way more. It's definitely at the
interesting.
bottom of the list. I honestly, I
mean,
can't
it
even...
spurred the sequel, so I was curious. I did want to see
I
it
enjoyed
eventually,
it the
but
first time in the theater, but then
Yeah.
I tried rewatching it. I'm like, man, I don't
Not
remember it
good.
being I don't know.
Yeah.
And then seeing Benny Safdie in Oppenheimer, I like really wanted to watch Good Time, so I rewatched Good Time.
Oh gosh,
so good. And then
that false advertising. That movie's a stressful time.
It's so good.
Not a good time.
And then Cube 2 Hypercube. I watched it again. I love it. It gets better every time.
I know, you literally are like texting me scenes from, and you're like, wow, out of context, this sounds crazy. And I'm like, Jordan, that whole movie is out of context.
Yes. And then I bought a show. I only have the first season, but I'm excited to watch the other seasons. And it's funny because as I was watching it, I'm like, oh, Mr. Ballin literally told some of these stories, just like that documentary you recommended. I'm like, oh, Mr. Ballin literally told the story.
You're like, I've seen this before. Yeah.
Yeah. The show is called Paranormal Witnesses, or just Witness. And all it is just people interviewed. And the last episode of season 1 is the best because it talks about this guy who was possessed, and like literally water, like, and the best part is they go and interview all these different people, and they're like, yeah, I was there. It was the most insane thing ever. And water was literally going upwards, and it was raining from the ceiling. Like, and it was like, there was no pipe burst or anything. It was just raining. It was just like, it's amazing. Like he could like control water. Like, I don't know. It's just weird, insane stories. Let's see.
Well,
and then
the devil has control over the water, so he must have given
That's
his
true.
soul to the devil.
And my wife and I were talking about that. It's just an interesting idea because when we served missions, we're actually not allowed to go on water because apparently
That's
like
not the reason why.
I just say it might be.
No, it's not. Just stop it. It's a wives' tale. But yeah,
Okay,
the reason you're
well-
not supposed to go swimming is because you're going to see a bunch of people in swimming suits. and
I
you're
don't
gonna
think
put
so.
No,
People have
no,
actually
let me
drowned in
finish, Let
water.
me finish. And then you're going to get. So that's all I'm going to say.
Oh
about
my
that.
gosh, no. And
Yep,
then
that's the reason
I
why.
rewatched Jerry and Marge Go Large. Ty, you need to watch it. You and Todd would you and your wife would really enjoy it.
That's the Michael
Bryan Cranston.
Brian Cranston. I'm sorry. Yeah, Brian
Yeah,
Cranston.
it's
I
got
was gonna say
Dwight.
Michael Crane, the writer and author of Andromeda Strain and Jurassic Park. I don't know why. I thought
Yeah, it reminds me a little
Bryan
bit.
Cranston.
I don't compare it to this because I know you're gonna be like, it's not even close, but it reminds me a little bit of Social Network, just because there's a whole part with these college students, like.
Oh, I know it's not going to live up to that. So
Okay,
that's
but anyways, Bryan Cranston's amazing. And then I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
know
if
you were sending me. What was he? He was bashed. Was the writer's strike? He's all like,
Yeah.
"We hate this ICOs" or something. Okay, and then-
He basically sounds
Yeah.
like himself from Breaking Bad,
yeah,
like
dude, you can tone it
yelling
up.
at
You can
the owner of Disney for
take it down a notch.
taking their jobs. AI's taking their
Take
jobs.
our jobs.
And then take out our jobs. And then I watched last thing is a documentary called Unknown Dimension, the story of paranormal activity. It's just so fascinating to hear, like, the smallest budgeted film that made the most income back, because it was like a $15,000
Paranormal
budget.
Activity.
Yeah, and then it made
Yeah.
like 240 million or whatever it was. And it's just like amazing, like how tiny the budget was, and just hearing their story and then where it went. And then where it went, listening to the studio producer, like he's literally being interviewed and he's like talking about like, oh, like we got to make it better. We got to make it 3D. And he's literally saying this in the interview. And I'm like, do you realize like this is why people hate movies? I mean, like sequels and stuff. Anyways, but Blumhouse, like he's awesome. And it's cool to hear how his, business started as well. So lots of fun stuff. And it just makes me want to start making movies again. Ty, what about you? What have you seen lately?
Yeah, well, I can't wait to star as the lead role in your new movie and upcoming movies, Jordan. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm doing these animated videos. It's like our chance to make sequels to movies. So just saying.
I love it. So yeah, I was in Utah, and when I was on the flight, did I already mention I watched Covenant? Because I feel like we talked. Yeah, because when we talked,
Maybe.
Guy Ritchie and Jake Gyllenhaal was really good.
Love it.
I know I mentioned it, and I can't remember if I talked about this on. Are we going to talk about Mission Impossible 7, or is that kind of just not
Oh
going to happen
shoot,
now?
yeah. Maybe we'll talk about it next time because Cameron left. Or do you, if
Yeah.
you want to talk about it now, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if I have too much to say, but I do want to say,
yeah.
like, I do want to watch Talk to Me, Oppenheimer, and Mission Impossible 7 again. I want to watch all three of those movies again. And that is quite a lineup. And Across the Spider-Verse. So I got like 4
They got some
really
great
good
summer
movies
movies
that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I want to rewatch them and see how I feel about them, because I don't want it to just be recency bias. But I was glad I stuck to my guns. I felt like Into the Spider-Verse was a better story as far as Miles is, but I did like what he said about Gwen, because I agree she was the heart of that movie, because while I still cared and was invested in Miles, like, and it wasn't until the end that you kind of get that gripping feeling of like, oh no, I care about Miles again at the end of the twist and whatnot. With a cliffhanger, I cared more, invested in Gwen and her father's relationship. So she kind of was a protagonist, which I didn't mind. I enjoyed her story, and I thought she was a big enough part of the first one and of Miles's journey that it was important to know some of her backstory, because we got a very small glimpse of it, and I thought it was really cool when you find out like, oh, Peter Parker turned into a lizard and she had to kill him, and then because of that reason her father's been, I'm like, oh, it's all.
Well, now you're talking about Spider-Man, so are we going to talk about Mission Impossible? I'm confused. We already did a podcast about Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's true. Across the Spider-Verse. Anyway, I don't know. I'm honestly tired and hungry, so
okay, yeah, you want to go. Cameron is going to be ranking Christopher Nolan's 12 directed movies. We'll start with number 1, The Following. Where would you rank it, Cameron?
For me, it's B. Is it all right if I have nothing in C?
Yeah, I mean, I even have a D. I'm kind of like, maybe I should just get rid of D, because D is an F, isn't it?
No.
No?
For me,
in school, isn't a D a fail or not?
No.
Oh.
For me, D is like a 6 out of 10, because 6 out of 10 is like, I'm like, you had potential, and I could see, like, for me, Bo was afraid. I'm like, I could see where you were going, and I feel like if it was done better.
D, I can't even right now with you. Okay, and then where would you put Memento?
Memento's I would say Memento's A.
Insomnia.
A.
And you can like defend your thoughts of why you would put it there if you ever want to say anything else.
I'm right.
Okay. Batman Begins.
A. But hot take, I think it's the third best of the Dark Knight trilogy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
The Prestige.
Prestige for me is right on the cusp of S, but A.
Not quite a masterpiece, huh?
Yeah, it's just not quite perfection, like 3 of his other films.
And then the next one is The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight is S. That's not even a question, huh?
Inception.
Inception for me is also S. I think the acting in it is insane. Not to mention the freaking score. Hans.
And then The Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises, I think, is underrated and is A. I think it just, the biggest problem it had was following up one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, that's the truth. And
'Cause
then
I think if The Dark Knight is the third movie in the trilogy, I think everyone says that it goes the best is Dark Knight, and then Dark Knight Rises, and then Batman Begins, but gets a lot of flack.
9 is Interstellar.
Interstellar's S for me. Those are my 3 S tier Nolan films.
Dunkirk.
Dunkirk's A.
And then Tenet.
Tenet is lower A.
I was gonna say, be careful. Ty's gonna snap on you on that one.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer's also A. Kind of mid to lower A.
And then surprise, we're gonna do his produced movies too.
Oh man.
He doesn't have very many. I mean, well, besides all these he's produced 6 other movies.
Okay. I think I know
and you might not have seen all of these. So the first one is Man of Steel. I know you've seen that one.
Yeah, that one for me is B.
I know it's kind of funny because like right now you only have one and B, and then all your other ones are A and S.
A and S, yeah.
So I thought we'd
That's what's crazy is because I think his worst movies ever made is Following, and it's an 8 out of 10 for me. So it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why I want to do his produced movies, because it's like otherwise
Makes him a little human.
Yeah, otherwise they're all like clumped up right at the tip top. Batman v Superman. Hesitation.
I'd give it a C because I watched it months after everyone said it was the worst movie they'd ever seen, and there was parts of it that I could like.
Why did you say that name? That's Cameron's favorite part.
Okay, and then Justice League, not the other one.
The initial.
Yeah, the first one, the Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon.
Yeah, can I put F? I'm putting D. Holy cow. Absolute rubbish.
Yeah, that was absolute garbage.
That's definitely top 15 worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
And then the Zack Snyder cut. I'm really curious where
Zack Snyder for me would be I think it's a C.
Really? I am shocked because you saw it twice.
Yeah. Well, it's not like it's a cinematic masterpiece. It was just so much better than the garbage that they spit out.
I know, but I just thought you would have like said A, because it's just like it's for you. It's like it's eye candy. It's got superheroes, which is just like
Justice League Unlimited, like the cartoon TV show, has better episodes than that entire movie. But it still hit that total guilty pleasure of mine, so I did really enjoy it.
Solid, Cameron.
Thank you.
So no D's.
Zack Snyder.
Huh?
Not Zack Snyder. The first Justice League, the Joss Whedon one.
You said it was an F.
Yeah, but you didn't have F, I thought.
No, I said should I get rid of D because isn't D just an F? Like that's what I thought, but I guess not.
It's very much not. That's why it exists.
Ty's like, leave it.
I got a D plus. It's a passing grade.
All right.
Nothing you'd want to put on your resume, but it's a passing grade nonetheless.
You're
okay. Yeah, because I'm gonna make some caveats. Cameron's just like, this is where they go.
Yeah, Cameron's pretty.
There was a couple I justified. Like I justified Dark Knight Rises because I knew that'd be a hot take. Most of them, I think people will agree are like, oh yeah, like except for maybe Insomnia because they're uncultured swine.
Wait, what's your hot take on Rises? Is it good or bad?
Oh, I have it as A tier. I think it's better than Batman Begins, barely.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. That is a hot take. You're wrong. I'm sorry, everybody on the podcast that had to listen to that opinion. It's wrong, and I acknowledge that here. So,
all right. So
everything else is like who's gonna argue with a Nolan film being an A? It's like,
yeah,
right, yeah.
Like the hottest take was probably Following being a B, because I could see some people being like, that was one of the boringest Nolan film I ever watched. Which
I liked it.
You'd be partially right, but it's still great.
I just think all films should be black and white. I just love them. I really think it just we should do. We should
after watching Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse back to back this week. I do not believe everything should be black and white.
Yeah, me neither. I started Mad Max Fury Road because he says it was supposed to be in black and white, and I got partway through it. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. It's so much better in color.
Yeah, but The Mist, we all know The Mist by
I do want to see that in black and white. That's the one movie I do need to see. Okay. Nolan's movies, I'm going to read them off really quick. You rank them, and then I'll put it up if that's all right. Do you have a second?
Okay. We're going to go in order that he made them?
Yeah. So first, The Following. Where would you rank that?
The Following. So I remember after I watched it, I put it right up there with The Killing with that Stanley Kubrick did. It's like a black and white film about a heist. I think it's a solid B. I probably should rank it higher because I really enjoyed it, but it's weird that it's the Criterion because to me it has all these Nolan aspects, but I love that it was like a shoestring budget. and he was trying to get this movie made, and it was from a short story or that his brother wrote. So I love that Nolan has ties to family and that he and his brother have been making these films, and I find their concepts much more interesting. I just
Mhm.
feel like it's a little limited with the acting and a little bit limited with the budget, but it's
Yeah.
hard saying that because I feel like remake it. I would watch the heck out of it. Like I love the story. So like to me, again, that's the concepts, but I feel like the actors did, and I'm not knocking them. They're fine, but it's almost like, oh,
I
I
love
can't
that
even.
you're
Yeah,
defending yourself, and it's like a B is still great. Like, I don't know.
yeah, that's not a bad movie, but it's just weird to be like, oh, Nolan's first one would be like it's been, like who am I? Like, and see, now I'm getting like gushing
No,
because like
you're
I've mocked movies well, many times before,
yeah.
but for some reason for Nolan, it just feels
You need
like
to
it's not
defend
like
it.
I'm a loyal, no, but just feel like this guy has done so much for cinema and he has not been recognized. Can I just say that he has
Oh,
not been justly recognized for his contribution to cinema
I
and
mean, but his
yeah,
box
anyway.
office numbers kind of, I feel like, say that he does.
And the fact that yeah, he can still get movies made and about projects that he wants to do, I think is really remarkable. So, and
All
not
right,
about
this
an existing IP. Holy smokes! Yeah, he gets a $100 million movie made. So that's
Memento, Ty.
Memento. Um, I guess I would give that one a B as well, only because after I've seen it, I don't feel like I want to rewatch it, and then I watch it and I always enjoy it, but I still just feel
Oh,
like
interesting. Yeah.
I now keep in mind, I love the video of him talking about, we've
Yes.
talked about it before, his diagram.
So great.
I find that more enjoyable than watching Memento
Interesting.
personally.
Yeah.
Because I love the idea of his story, and I love that he's like it's so ambitious. Like just say it on paper. It's like I'm gonna do a film, but it's backwards. So like I literally thought it was our backwards movie. Remember when we literally filmed
Yeah.
everything in reverse and we were doing impossible things because we were filming in reverse. I thought that's what it meant. And then you watch, you're like, no. He's just playing a sequence from the very end. And then he goes back and gives you a little more context. So again,
Eh,
still very ambitious, very interesting. And I love talking about it more. But, and then I love Guy Pearce's performance, and I love, what's his face? The ratty guy from Matrix and from Memento. He's the bad guy, Teddy. He's great. And
eh,
Trinity is great in it. So like a lot of interesting characters. I almost feel like that too also was a movie that just feels so different, but I feel like it's so dated these days. I don't know why, but
Insomnia.
Insomnia. See, oh my gosh, I feel
I
so
know
bad.
it.
I'm just ranking all these movies B or C. I like it. It just doesn't feel like a Nolan movie, honestly. Like it feels like a
Well,
perfectly
it's not. It's a
adequate.
remake. So
Is it really? See, now
yeah,
I'm
the
interested to see
original is in
the.
the Criterion Collection. I've tried to watch it. I fell asleep.
Yeah, see, that's interesting to me because see, I just feel like it just feels so not Nolan-esque. And
S-
again, it's just an odd movie
So
because I
C.
like, yeah, C or B, I
Oh
guess,
my
if I'm being honest. Yeah,
gosh, I
C.
can't even right now.
Which
I'm just
sounds
kidding.
bad because yeah,
No,
see,
it's
there's the
fine.
other movie I didn't see in theaters. Yeah,
And
Insomnia. Yeah.
to clarify, so people know, this is not how you feel of Nolan's directing. It's just the film as a whole, and
Oh
this
yeah.
is your personal opinion.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, because I'm like Nolan. Yeah, I'm judging the movie as a whole. I'm trying to try to
You're good.
take it all in. It's like a fire hose right now.
Wait, so what you said, either C or B? Which one is it? You gotta tell me
I'll
right
give that
now.
one a C because like as far
Okay.
as rewatch, that's funny. I love that you bring up this movie because to me it's that and the following that are the two least rewatchable.
All right.
Least
Batman
rewatchable. So
Begins.
Batman Begins. This is an A movie. An A. It's darn near perfect. I remember watching it though, and every time I watch it, I always forget what's in this movie. So I think for that reason, it's probably A and not S tier. Because right, S tier is the top, A is like pretty close to it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah, it's S
S tier is
masterpiece.
masterpiece. Yeah. So I love Batman Begins. This like kindled all my love. Like as a kid, I watched it at like 13 or 14 years old, and I was like, this is a perfect movie. Right. So I watched it then because I was like, this is like the Batman animated series I grew up on, the Dark Knight. I loved all that stuff. I was like, Arkham Knight, this guy is the coolest. He's a detective, but he's also a fighter. He's got some complex issues about him, and it was a gritty, realistic version of a superhero, and I just loved it. So Ra's al
The
Ghul, Liam
Prestige. Oh,
Neeson, A. Sorry, I could just gush about that
no,
movie all
I
day. So
know. I'm trying
great
to get
movie.
through this.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Prestige.
The Prestige. So it's interesting because I just had a chance to rewatch this. I'd put this level as S tier.
What?
Yes,
Okay.
I love The Prestige. I think The Prestige is like a really dark and unassuming movie about a magician, but it's about like obsession over someone's craft. Where
Mm.
when you start to think about Nolan and him making movies, the whole movie is like it's an
Oh,
allegory.
the
He talks about the
meta.
3 acts. Yeah, yeah. But see, it's not even just the fact that it's like meta, therefore it's like good. It's just like it was so cool to see, like, because again, the movie, I always felt like it was so unassuming. I'm sure people went and saw it. I'm sure it was a pretty good box office. Like you had Christian Bale and you had Hugh Jackman, like two giant stars at the time, and it was like, this is the must go see movie of the summer, right? I mean, like, and I just remember watching it being like, I remember the first time I watched it, I was just like, this is something else. Like it was like so much darker and so much different, more different than I was expecting. And I was like, movies can be like this. So I saw it at a very interesting time. And that was part
The
of my awakening to like more like I didn't even understand the meta stuff of it. It was just like movies can have a twist ending, but also like a significant meaning at the end where he's like, I don't know if
yeah.
I would be the one in the box. Freaked
The
me out because I was like, yo, what if like would I do that to myself? Like literally it was a weird question I was asking at the end of the movie. Really cool to get a teenager thinking questions like that.
The Dark Knight.
So S tier. Dark Knight 100% S tier. It
Yeah,
cannot
I
be
knew it.
disputed. This movie, when it came out, I was awestruck. I mean, in the movie and after the movie, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was trying to talk to you about it. I probably talked to you and annoyed you about it because you and I were sitting in the back of Dad's truck, and I was just like, dude, what did we just watch? Like that was the best movie I've ever seen. And that's a crazy thing to say because like to this day it ranks as my number one movie of all time. But it's just so cool that like years later I've watched it again and I still love it. Every time I watch it, I observe something different. Heath Ledger's performance is unmatched and unparalleled. I mean, it's right up there with There Will Be Blood from Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in that movie. But like this by far takes the cake. I mean, the Joker was so unhinged and he was on t-shirts. Like he looked so ugly and menacing. People were wearing him on t-shirts, bro. Like that's the cultural impact that he had, like, and it was not family friendly. Like it was like teenagers are being rebellious wearing Joker t-shirts. It's crazy. But like Why So Serious, the ad campaigns, everything from it. And then of course Aaron Eckhart, Latter-day Saint. A lot of people don't know that. He's in a seminary video. Watch it. What
It,
about the pain?
Inception.
Inception. That's right between S and A. That's a hard one because I already gave The Prestige. I think Inception is another meta movie where he's like talking about the making of a film and he has like,
Hmm.
it's just about what you show him. And he, because The Prestige, he talks about the 3 acts and like you have 3 acts in movies. This one, he's like, sometimes you just start a scene and you're just there. And like, he literally does it in the movie. And then he goes, oh, but we're dreaming. And you're like, oh, that's so freaking cool. So gosh, I want to put that one as an A. I don't know. Like, is it a masterpiece? Yes. Okay. You know what? It's gonna put S tier for me for Inception.
Okay, you got 3.
I'm gonna have
All
to get
right.
it because it's a great movie and it has character elements, mind you. Maul and Leonardo DiCaprio's like emotional weight. That's there. He wants to get back to his kids. He's missing his wife. His wife was inceptionized. He planted an idea in her head and he knew that it was possible because he did it to the one he loved. Super compelling, awesome movie.
The
Heist
Dark
movie, by the way. Super cool.
The Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises. This one would be a B for me. I think it's a super capable and competent trilogy bookend, but I just feel like it's stressful to watch a movie the untimely death of Heath Ledger, rest in peace. And then changing it to Bane, which I thought was so inspired. I'm like, yeah, just go on to the next villain. Like that was the perfect choice. But the fact that he gets shot by Catwoman on a bike, it just kind of hurts. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But then the whole Maul introduction, I call her Maul from Inception, her introduction to the Batman, I was just like, too many women. Just keep it between him and Batwoman or Catwoman. I thought that would have been better because they did it better in the Batman.
Oh,
That
interesting.
yeah,
They
just
didn't
cut
get
out
enough
Maul
time
entirely.
for
But I
her.
get that they wanted to do the switch, which was again, you can't rewatch it because now that you know the twist, it's like it holds nothing. You're like,
Yeah.
this freaking chick is because she's gonna try to get what she needs from you and plunge a knife into your stomach, and it's painful to watch, honestly. So yeah, it's B and even C, but that sounds bad because that's almost too harsh. Because Tom Hardy, the trailer, when I watched that, I was like, I cannot wait to watch the crap out of this movie. Like, because when the trailer hit and like it's playing the national anthem at the football game, the
Yeah.
stadium collapses, and then you meet Bane and he's like talking with this proboscis on his face. So menacing and so cool because I was like, Tom Hardy, heck yeah, I'm a huge Tom Hardy fan from the Mad Max Fury Road and like all the other movies that Tom Hardy's done. big Tom Hardy fan. So I saw that trailer and I thought it was awesome. So it definitely still is a B for me. So Interstellar. Okay, I was awestruck again at the concept of this movie. This is an A-level movie for me because I loved the concept so much. And then I even love, like, hindsight, like, I'm an apologist for this movie because a lot of people are like, Anne Hathaway and her monologue is so unbearable. But I'm like, she was wrong. Like, let's not forget that. Like, now, and a lot of people think because there's like this emotional weight to it and like it kind of is corny, hands up some character. He was swinging for the fences, and I think he landed it. Like, how on earth do you portray fourth dimension and four-dimensional beings and that
Cube
concept
2
to
did it, but
people? What was that?
I said Cube 2, Hypercube
Yeah,
did
Cube 2.
it.
Yeah, Cube 2. That's how you do it. You jump through a crappily animated trap door, and that's your fourth dimension. I don't know. The movie's so dumb. Don't even talk about Cube 2 and Interstellar.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Matthew McConaughey's performance is really good. That's another thing. And then a lot of people like point to Casey Affleck has kind of ignored his son. And I'm like, I love Hans Zimmer, the score. It's just like, and the moment of tensity with the science and the spinning in space. It's super fun. Like, there's so many things about it that I love. It's an A tier. It's not quite S, only probably because it's not as, like, I love it, but it's not as rewatchable as like Prestige. It's like, and Dark Knight. Like, those movies are much more rewatchable than. So again, it's a masterpiece. Oh, it's hard to say that just because it's not rewatchable, but that's a bit important part to me because like I watch There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men every month. I sound crazy saying this. I watch those movies like, and I just turn them on and I watch them every month because they're freaking masterpieces, man. So, and I don't do that for Interstellar. So just, that's why it's an A. It's an A. It's a very good movie and it's very well done. So
Dunkirk.
Oh, Dunkirk. This is between an A or an S tier because can I give it an A minus or no, an A plus?
Yeah, that's fine, but it's still
I'll
A.
give it an A. I'll give it an A. I love Dunkirk. I think it was super well done. I love that they showed the horrific reality of war while being very subtle about it. Like, I mean, again, this is a PG-13 film, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah.
And again, not like the sound in this movie, the airplane, Tom Hardy coming back with my boy with the plane, like one of the most heroic showmanship of.
If there was a movie to be rated R, this should have been the one, I feel like, instead of Oppenheimer. I'm just saying. Because when the bombs were dropping and people were flying, it was just like all you saw was sand. Like you should have seen body parts flying. But I don't think it needs to be changed. I'm just saying.
But also, like, again, he showed like the psychological trauma more that you focus on that because the kid, he's got his head buried in the sand and he's just praying. And you're like, and again, sand landing on top of him. It's not just sand that it was landing on these people. But again, it was told in sequentially, which I thought was interesting, but by that time I almost had expected it because like I was like, you had movies like Memento and Prestige even a few times has flashbacks, but for the most part it's linear. But by this point you had Interstellar, which had dealt with time, and so by this point it almost felt like why did this movie need to be told? I don't necessarily know, and I'm like, narratively it like works and I understand it, but I'm like, maybe for like intensity purposes it was like done that way. So like I still give it an A. I just don't know if it crosses like the best for me, but I feel like with Tarantino's recommendation, did you find it's an S tier?
That's why it bumped up to an S. That's because of Quentin explaining to me, and I'll get into mine. I'll talk about.
You're like, Tarantino showed me the way.
He did.
He's like, and Dunkirk's fun, man. Get it?
Get it, Jan?
Get it, Jan?
Tenet.
Oh gosh, I'm a Tenet apologist. I love this movie, but I have to probably give it an A or a B. Like, I think Tenet's super fun. This is a concept. This is a cool spy movie. I know a lot of people are like, J.D. Washington, I don't know anything about him, and I'm like, his character and the motivation. I'm like, have you seen the hot actress that he's gunning for? She's great. She's a mysterious, tall knockout, blonde. She's tortured by Victor Sater, whose name is a palindrome as well. The Tenet title is a palindrome. The temporal pincer. The whole movie's about the temporal pincer. This movie has a fire truck in it. Like it's all the things I want. So it's rewatchable. It's more rewatchable than Interstellar.
So are you leaning more towards A or B?
I'm gonna give it an A rating.
All right.
Even though that's like way too generous. I love the movie. It's guilty pleasure.
Oppenheimer.
Come at me, bro. Oppenheimer. I feel like this is recency bias. I can't wait to watch this movie again because I think it'll be more accurate.
Yeah.
I think this was like a masterclass of film, but I'm almost like Nolan. Like I vented my grievance. I'm like, did you try too hard? Because like, let's be real. I've been married, man. They're just sitting in chairs opposite of each other across the room. And I'm like, who does that? Like, normal people don't do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
Nolan still is like a crazy person. And he's like, well, you guys want human interaction, and this is it. And you're like, no, it's not. Normal people don't do this. Anyway, I know it's no less than an A. Is it an S tier movie? Golly, I don't know. I feel like time will tell. I'm gonna give it an S tier because I'm very excited to see it
Whoa.
again.
Yeah.
And I feel like despite my beef with the movie overall, it like with a 3-hour runtime, my agreements with it just feels like such a small blip in this, because I'm like, I was so wildly fascinated from, wanting to poison his professor's apple to being responsible for the creation of the atomic bomb. It's such a crazy ride. It's like there's so much in this
So,
movie.
quick surprise, we're doing the movies he produced as well.
Oh, you're right.
So there's only 6, so we'll go really quick. And I don't think I don't know if you've seen all these. So Man of Steel.
Man of Steel. I like Steel. Your
Steel.
Utah accents drive me crazy. Man of Steel. Man of Steel. Was that Zack Schneider? I remember watching it.
Zack Schneider, but yes, Christopher Nolan wrote the story, and he also produced.
But I was just making sure that he was the one that directed it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Zack Schneider. I remember liking this movie, but this was the first or second movie I saw returning home from my 2-year mission for the church, where I didn't watch any movies that were
for 2 years. So when you got home, you're like, oh, that's amazing.
I was like, this is awesome.
Have you rewatched it since?
I have not since
Exactly.
rewatched Man of Steel. And so that's why this falls into the Avatar syndrome, where I'm like, in the movie theater, I was like, sure, this is a great film,
but I'll never watch
it
again.
Why would I ever rewatch this movie? So
it's your ranking.
This falls into less rewatchable than any of the movies I talked about before. This is a C, maybe a B movie. Oh, it's a perfectly fine B movie. I would give it that.
Okay.
In the context of superheroes today, because I'm like, yeah, like this was. I remember when the trailer came out for that, I was super pumped for it. Like,
can't believe you put it
elegy.
above Insomnia. That's a criminal.
Wait, did you give it a B or C? Because Insomnia was C.
Insomnia C. So you said B.
Man of Steel. I said it was between a C and a B.
Oh,
closer to a C. I'll give it a. Yeah. I'll give it a C because I have not rewatched it. Like, it's a C. It's a C for sure.
All right. And then have you seen Transcendence? He produced that one.
Is that the
Johnny Depp?
Johnny Depp? Yeah. Okay, that is an F. That movie sucked.
Yeah.
Bum. Like, and again, what's so weird is like having Nolan's name attached to that in any way. It's like he's like the concept, it's there. It's like a man becomes AI. Like, that's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like right there, it's like, tell me your premise. Man becomes AI. How does it happen? I don't remember. I fell asleep. Freaking Lucius Fox, what's his name? Morgan Freeman was there. Like, what the freak? All Johnny Depp, like, I'm pretty sure he was still like one of the top actors at the time. It was like, dude, Johnny Depp's coming out with this snooze fest. What a snooze fest. That movie's stupid.
Yeah,
that movie's F. This is an F.
Batman vs Superman.
Yourself, Nolan. Batman versus Superman. Why did you say that name? Golly, that movie's a C, if not a D. That's a D movie right there. Because I went and saw a small budget film, a lesser known film, 10 Cloverfield Lane, double feature. That movie was far more entertaining than a movie that cost like 4 times its budget. So go see 10 Cloverfield Lane. That was an amazing movie. And I'd recommend that movie over Batman vs Superman any day. And I will never rewatch Batman vs Superman ever again. I will never rewatch
Have you seen the Ultimate Edition, though, is the question.
See, why did I say it wasn't a D? It's a D. Yeah, it's a D.
Yeah, it's a D.
It's an F. I don't know. I was mildly entertained with like the Batman versus Superman fight. Like, I was like, this is interesting. Like, oh, he has a kryptonite gun. Okay. He infected him with gas. So he's like a beefed up mortal man fighting an immortal man. There's something to it. And real quick, the cartoon is better. The Mark Hamill voice is Joker, and Batman and Superman meet up in this cartoon, and they fight Lex Luthor and Joker, and that's an amazing cartoon. I think it's like Batman versus Superman or something like that, or Batman and Superman team up against villains or something. An amazing cartoon.
Justice League, Zack Snyder's.
Gosh, this kind of falls. It's a C for me because like it's certainly much better than like. I'd argue Batman vs Superman, definitely, but I don't know, like there's a lot of moving parts. It's 4 hours long. I mocked it when it came out. Like, there's just things that I'm like, so
yeah. All right,
but as far as like Josh Whedon probably falls, and I won't ever see it. I will never see that movie, so that falls lower. But this one's definitely like a C, if not a D for me. You could put it in either. I couldn't care less. Is that all of the films that he's produced?
Minus his short films, but I wasn't doing the short films.
Okay.
Yeah, I put it at C. Do you want to drop it to D?
Let's I'd leave it as C. I'd say a solid C minus.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
All right,
we'll leave it there.
my turn.
I think all of his films rank somewhere, and like I have one for every.
Oh
Did I
yeah,
get
let
one
me
for
tell you.
D?
I'll tell you
Yeah.
really quick.
Or because I have like one in each category, I guess.
So you got 4
Yeah.
in S, 4 in A, 3 in B, 3 in C, 1 in D, and
Oh.
1 in F. So
Oh
you've
wow.
got kind of
Yeah.
almost even.
Yeah, so
scale up
but
and scale
again,
up.
it's just ironic that as far as directing, I don't think he had anything lower than a B as far as what he directed.
Yeah, no, you did have you put Insomnia on C.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I still stand by it because again,
I
that's
get
so
it.
weird to say because it's just like when
Uh,
you see what someone's capable of and then you watch him perform, it's like it wasn't your best performance, man. We weren't putting it at all.
And I was excited to do this just because I'd seen other people do it, and also because we've seen all his movies, we reviewed all his movies,
And we reviewed them all on the podcast. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, we'll see anything he does. He's, we've even seen the stuff he produces.
Christopher Nolan, you can do no wrong. That's
Well,
why some of your movies are, of course, producing. But
they're
anyway,
produced, yeah. And
yeah.
anything you direct. All
You
right,
just stand at the helm. Don't let anybody push you around or let you be a direct. You be the director.
We're talking like as if he's listening to this. He's not listening to it.
Nolan, if you're listening, we love you.
Yeah. So the following, I would have to. Okay, and my D is not because it's a failure or anything. It's because I personally, it's not for me. It's not that it's a bad film. It's actually,
Jordan,
if we were to
take what they have and show them what they had, or
well,
just take it away.
So this is my list, and so I'm just ranking on like my watchability. I won't ever rewatch it, even though I've seen it twice. And I mean, if I do, like I said, if I have a kid that likes movies, I will go through all of his films, and then eventually we'll watch the following.
If I have a kid that likes movies, you're gonna have a kid that hates movies. What a waste of time!
Not,
and you're gonna be like, "Don't you get it?"
But it's if I'm ranking it on how well it was made, obviously I'd put it way higher. But this is just my list, so and maybe I'll bump it up to C. And Memento, I would have to say that is an A film. I think it's amazing.
Okay.
And I think Ty's crazy that it's not rewatchable. I don't think you're gonna like my list, honestly.
No, I love it. I love it because
It's
I
gonna be
gave it
different.
a B. Yeah, I think it's a good film.
I think it's so that's amazing, and I love his early work. So Insomnia.
Well, you said you love his early work. You like just trashed his first.
I know his first film. Well, I'm talking about
I like his early year work.
When he finally got a budget. When he got a budget. That's what I meant.
Sorry, I just love it. I love it
because it feels very much like a student film, and I got no problem with student films. I like student films, but it's like in comparison to his movies where they have a budget and great. No, but when they have a budget and good actors, I mean, I would love to see the following made with the budget he can get today. Amazing concept, like all his movies. So Insomnia, as of right now, it's an A, but maybe I'll bump it up to an S. It's like teetering on S. It's like A plus, maybe S minus.
Dumb. It's so dumb.
It's a masterpiece. I love it.
What is it? Like you just love Pacino, or you like Robin Williams? What is it?
It has everything I want. Yeah, in a serial killer movie. It has.
I like serial killer movies, but again, I would say the Killing TV show was better than Insomnia. Go watch the Killing.
And how he portrays like somebody suffering from insomnia is amazing. Like I felt like I was passing out and like. I mean, not passing out because he can't sleep, but like
George's like, yeah, I fell asleep.
Well, but there was
that's the Secret Invasion with Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman. It's
but
like,
that's
stay
me.
awake. You're like, oh, I'm having as hard of a time staying awake as the actors.
My favorite movies are the ones where I fall asleep to. Blade Runner, for example, fell asleep a lot.
So funny. You're like, it put me to sleep. That's a 5-star rating. You're like. That may not be movie.
Dang, yeah. I'm like, should I bump that back up?
I don't think it means what you think it means.
And then Batman Begins. That was an A film. So good. After rewatching it, I'm like, yeah, this is one of the best superhero movies.
So good.
Prestige. Don't hate me, Ty. It's a B film. Maybe.
When's the last time you've seen it though? I'm curious.
For the pod, and I remember enjoying it, and it's good. Don't get me wrong. And when I first saw it, I loved it so much. I saw it twice in the theater, but I'd say it's a C plus B minus. It's not. It's not for me. Like I just think it's a fascinating period piece, but it's not a period
I always
piece.
forget. Yeah, like it feels more timeless. But it's funny you say that. I'm like, yeah, this is like when like they have a revolver in this movie, like top hats and stuff. And I'm like, I thought that was just the magician thing, but no, it's like
feels very much like Sherlock, which I enjoy. But
interesting. Yeah,
it's not. It's just not. I like more kind of the 80s vibe than. That's gone too far back. Ty loves old.
Does any of Nolan's films take place in the 80s?
I don't know. And then
I think you just like the movie Blade Runner, Jordan. And synthesizer.
Yeah. The Dark Knight, an A film. Sorry, Ty. I know everybody.
Wow,
I know
that's
everybody on the
interesting. Yeah.
planet thinks it's an S
Yeah.
tier film. I get it. It's great. And don't get me wrong. Like Heath Ledger's performance is amazing. And
Yeah.
I mean, his performance alone is an S tier performance.
But the movie as a whole.
I don't know.
Jordan just doesn't like Maggie Gyllenhaal. Doesn't think her as attractive as Katie Holmes.
Whatever. I think I actually like her better because she has more personality. Inception.
Bruce, it's not what you do that defines you, but what? Oh wait, it's not what you are that defines you, but what you do that defines. I don't remember.
And then Inception is an A film. Man, I think all his films I'm just going to be giving an A.
Okay, wait, slow down. So you mean to tell me right now your only S tier is Insomnia by Christopher Nolan?
I don't know yet. Hey, I'm not done. We're still going through it. I'm ranking
him now.
Insomnia is still an A as of this moment, but I'm like, oh, I kind of
no Insomnia. You gave an S tier.
I said maybe. I said an S minus A plus.
Okay.
I'm still deciding.
Oh, and you got Dunkirk. Okay,
I'm looking at the rest of them up on the thing, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, I definitely want to bump it up or down.
Jordan's like, the movie.
Well, because S tier is like masterpieces, like
yeah, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, and all his films are like they're perfect movie theater movies. The Dark Knight Rises, I still like it. Don't get me wrong, but I'd have to put it probably either next to Prestige or a B. I think it's just a B film. Maybe I'll have to bump Prestige up. Man, I'm so indecisive, guys. I'll probably change this entire list.
If you didn't enjoy The Dark Knight as much as S tier, then you should be ranking that as C or D, bud. The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah,
that is 2 letter grades below 100%.
It's a B film though, right?
It literally goes 2, 1, 3. Everyone knows that. No one disputes that. Like I know a few people that have actually said the first one is the best, and then 2 is second, and then third. But I'm like, no, Dark Knight's better than the first one. But
yeah, but okay, and then the Interstellar is a masterpiece, and I am a sci-fi geek, so I love Interstellar.
Synthesizer, see, he likes the organ music. Kind of feels like a synthesizer.
The music perfect.
Hans Zimmer falling asleep on the keyboard.
If there's anybody to make a masterpiece in space, it would be him.
Yeah, it did seem like
2001: A Space Odyssey
to make a space film. I remember when we found out it's like this movie takes place in space. We're like, so wait, did you give Inception yet?
I am. Yeah, Inception's A, and then Dunkirk, which now I'm wondering, should Inception be a B? I don't know.
Oh wow.
Think about it. I don't know. So Dunkirk, it was originally an A, but after I was educated by Quentin Tarantino talking on rewatchables, he helped.
He said Unstoppable.
He helped me understand why it's a masterpiece, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I do have my own opinions. Don't get me wrong. I know Ty teases me that I form opinions that other people have, but I do when I'm educated.
Quentin Tarantino, what are my opinions?
But when somebody educates me, it's like, oh my gosh, like I can appreciate it more. Like Wolf of Wall Street, I did not like the first time, but when Wisecrack educated me and why it's a good movie, I'm like, oh, okay, like I understand now.
I love you keep saying the word educated. Why don't you use the word like enlightened, or they shared some things that made you appreciate it more? You make it sound like you're like they educated me. They took my brain out and put one in it. I don't know. It just made me laugh. I love the way you're saying.
So Tenet, amazing theater experience. However, it's down with Prestige. I'm sorry, it's a C. I saw it twice. Like I enjoyed it, and I'll probably see it more. I mean, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just of all.
That's what Victor Sater thinks of your review.
I know. And then Oppenheimer. So if I was to rank it like how well it was made, obviously it's S tier. But I'm ranking what I think of it, and I just don't know if I'll see it again. I don't know. I'm so indecisive about this one. And I bet after a rewatch, I'll be like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. But it's kind of a slow biopic. So, oh man, I'm like, should I put it next to Tenet and Prestige? Yes.
C.
I think I liked it better though than those movies. Oh man, this is a hard one. Because it'd be either C plus or B minus. Like, and not to say that, oh my goodness. And now I'm like, Dark Knight Rises should not be above it. Oh geez, I should put it down with the rest of those. Yeah, I'm so indecisive right now, guys. I'm so sorry. Let's
folks on the podcast. This is a very solemn moment to
and then let me just really quick burn through his produced movies so Ty can get eaten. Let's see.
Get eaten.
Get eaten.
Yeah, get to the eating.
Get eaten. And then Man of Steel.
I don't want to be eaten.
Man of Steel. Steel.
Saying Man of Steel.
I would put it. This is horrible. It's not. A D minus.
S tier.
It's.
He's like, Man of Steel. It's the best thing that Nolan's ever been attached to.
Oh, that would be so funny. Like S tier. This is my favorite movie. You know, there's parts I enjoy. I like the beginning when the story, I'm like, oh, this is fun. Then it's just like a punch fest. So I'd say either D minus or F. I'll keep it a D minus for now. Maybe I'll bump it. Let's see. So at Transcendence, I didn't know I'd put any of his movies in F, but I'm sorry. This is absolute garbage. It was the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
That's a bonkers movie, dude.
It's just not for me, if I can say it nicer. Batman vs Superman. I cannot put it up next to.
Why'd you say that name? It's an S tier.
I know this sounds horrible, but I enjoyed it. I want to put it next to The Dark Knight Rises, but I can't put it above.
My word.
I can't put it above
Good
Oppenheimer.
Because you're like, when I put it in the context of Batman vs Superman.
I know. I just feel like I'm gonna be like crucified for if I put Batman vs Superman high.
Don't worry, folks.
I only seen it once, and I
away.
don't think I'll ever see it again. But getting into what I did see is I saw Batman v Superman. I watched the Ultimate Edition, and that was trash. And I don't know if it's because I just don't like the movie anymore, or if it's because a bunch of people were saying like, oh, you have to watch this cut because it has a bunch of stuff that helps. Like,
it explains why.
Yeah, it explains it better.
Nonsensical. It explains the Martha.
And I just thought
nowhere.
And I don't know if it's just because I was like, man, I realized that I didn't like the movie, or if it's because I was like, this explained nothing and I just didn't care for it. So anyways, that's an F. I just could care less for more of that film. So and
then
you
got Joss Whedon and in the Justice League.
Yeah,
Zack
so
Snyder.
I did watch not Zack Snyder. What's the other guy? Josh Whedon. I did watch his cut. It's an F. It's so dumb. It's the worst movie.
It's crazy that movie
but
got made.
I know this is going to be horrible, but I'm going to put the Zack Snyder's Justice League in C tier next to The Dark Knight Rises.
No, that's not wrong. Well, yeah, next to The Dark Knight. Dark Knight Rises, you mean?
Dark Knight Rises, sorry. Yeah, The Dark Knight. No, because I really enjoyed it. I like 300. I like not as much anymore.
Dawn
I
of the
used
Dead.
to growing up. Yeah, but I love Dawn of the Dead and then The Watchmen. I just really like Zack Snyder's visuals, mixed with some Christopher Nolan. I don't know. Where can you go wrong? But I guess he did with the...
You can. It's 4 hours and you're just like, oh my gosh.
But yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better about this.
I just want to say, you're crazy.
I knew you would totally disagree.
You have
with
one
this
S tier, and that's Dunkirk.
No, it's Dunkirk and Interstellar. I'm starting.
Oh, that's true. You do have Interstellar.
Insomnia.
And again, that's surprising for me. I'm surprised that Interstellar's up there so high.
Insomnia is like teetering on S.
Please do it. Please make Insomnia S tier.
I'll get so much crap for that.
I'll love you for it. I really do. Because to me, it's like I would rewatch Prisoners back to back 800 times before I rewatched Insomnia. Prisoners is like the S tier of what Insomnia couldn't be.
Oh, no, I agree. That's why I'm thinking
so many movies that I'm like are just so much better than this.
Well, that's why I agree. I won't. So I'm gonna keep it at S tier because I don't rewatch it as much. I do rewatch Dunkirk and Interstellar. I've rewatched so many times, but Insomnia I've seen, maybe only 4 or 5 times, maybe 6, but in comparison to like a zillion times for the other two. But yeah, I think that's a solid list for now. I'm sure I'll go back and change it because I am the most indecisive person on the planet. But anyways, any final thoughts, Sai, before we wrap it up?
No, everybody, this has been a treat. Jordan, thanks for doing that. That was really fun. So this has been Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Leave us an email, futromovies@gmail.com. Are you checking that email every once in a while?
Yeah.
Okay. Or leave us a comment on our videos. That's another good way we can see your recommendations. It's easier than even going to an email. So, but
now I'm questioning myself. Comment. Maybe I haven't checked the email in like forever.
I know there's like a bunch of unread emails, maybe one that's not from our mother. So, folks, this has been Futro Hidden Movie Gems. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we love you guys. Stay safe out there, and we'll all be safe until someone builds a bigger bomb. Anyway,
peace.
Guys, take it easy. Bye.